and joining you guys at a different time and different location than normal. Josh here on the wrong lead, joined as always by Mr. Andrew Champagne, doing another episode of Drankin' Champagne. Andrew, how are you doing, my friend?
Da da da. Yeah. Josh does not have his soundboard with him. He is on assignment in the middle of freaking nowhere. Having said that, it's a big week, obviously. The Kentucky Derby is upon us. We are recording this on Sunday night, so we're 6 days away from the Run for the Roses and 5 days away from the Kentucky Oaks. If you're tuning in because it's the Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks, big week of racing, first of all, welcome. Thank you very much for spending part of your Derby week with us here on the On the Wrong Lead Network. If you like what we do, if you're on YouTube, go on down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. All those fun buttons down there that you see, we really appreciate it, and that gives us the ability to produce more shows like this in formats that hopefully our listeners appreciate. So we've got a lot of fun things planned for this show. It's impossible not to have fun, really, with such a smorgasbord of racing coming up this week at Churchill Downs. There's a lot going on with the Tuesday and Thursday programs. There's also, though, the Kentucky Oaks Day program on Friday and the Kentucky Derby program on Saturday. We'll talk about the big races for sure, but we'll also go through some of the races on the undercard with our best bets and live long shots, and hopefully be able to give you something you can use to make some money on a big day.
Andrew, I believe it's called 50 Tuesday.
Okay, fine. That's fine by me. You can call it whatever you want. I'll call it the Thursday before the Kentucky Derby.
No,
Just
that's
like,
Derby.
yeah, I'll call it the Tuesday and Thursday before the Kentucky Derby. Thank you. Freedom of speech, Josh. I know my rights.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit different show than I think we're normally used to, just because A, I'm in a hotel room, and B, I'm working off a laptop. So normally I have a bunch of screens and other stuff to mess around here, but we want to make sure we got some content out for, obviously, in my opinion, the biggest day of racing of the year. Sorry, Breeders' Cup, but I think at least for the lay people out there, right, the non-regular fans, the Kentucky Derby is it. But I did want to. We'll go ahead and we'll just jump right in, Andrew. We're gonna go through our normal format: best bet, long shot, bold prediction for each day, and have a couple different thoughts here for each of them. I didn't really touch. Well, I my best bet is in the Oaks, but none of them, and I guess my bold prediction is in the Derby, but it's. I don't know. I thought actually I was going to avoid the big races, but I ended up kind of jumping right in. But Andrew, you're going to start us off with a pretty early race here in race 6 in the Unbridled Sydney Stakes.
Yep, this is Friday's card. So Friday, May 3rd, I will focus on race number 6, the Unbridled Sydney. 4 fillies and mares going 5.5 furlongs on the new Churchill Downs turf course. Seen a couple of races on it. I'm cautiously optimistic. Churchill's recent track record with regard to growing grass, not great. On Saturday night, though, the turf course looked pretty good. I hope it holds up. Of course, it looked pretty good for a little while last year, and then shit hit the fan. Having said that, though, I am going to the far outside in this turf sprint, and I am focusing very heavily on horse number 10, Tony Ann. Tony Ann last year quietly had a pretty darn good year for trainer Phil D'Amato out on the West Coast, shipped over to Kentucky for a couple of runs, was third in a grade 2 at Kentucky Downs before capturing the grade 2 Franklin at Keeneland, winning that race by a neck over a horse, Josh, that some people out there have probably heard of, and that's Caravel. Granted, Caravel was a bit past her peak at that point, but she was still capable of running pretty big races. They ran this horse in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint against the boys, and No Balls just was not coming back to the rest of the field on that particular occasion. Plus, even though she has a win going 5 furlongs on the resume, I think that's a little bit shorter than she wants. I think she's a 5.5 furlong horse. She has not run since the Breeders' Cup, and Josh, that's something I noticed that we can talk about as we go through. There are a lot of horses coming coming back on the Oaks and Derby Day programs off of long layoffs. And that had been something that I had sort of seen before, but this is new in how many horses are doing that. Tony Ann, though, has been working very consistently over at Keeneland. I am not concerned with the layoff. Flavian Pratt sees fit to ride, and I love the post position because he can play the break from there. There's a lot of early speed in a 5.5 furlong turf sprint because, hey, it's a 5.5 furlong turf
Mm-hmm.
sprint. You're going to get some early speed horses here. Tony Ann has shown that she can sit in that second or third flight and come running. I think that's the winning trip in this particular spot. And Josh, I really hope we get that 8-1 morning line price come post time for the Unbridled Sydney on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I had a slightly different opinion than you on that race. I did think that the morning line favorite, the 2 overcharged, looked pretty tough in that spot, but um, I don't hate the pick of the 10. I think if there does if it does end up getting a little crazy up front, I do think that you're going to get a bit of you're going to get a horse that's going to get a nice trip, right, and is going to be able to he's going to be able to kind of shift over with all that speed in front of it, or horses that are a little bit more forwardly placed. But yeah, I don't hate it. 8-1, great price. I went to the big race here, and I went straight to the Kentucky Oaks, and you know, I don't have a super strong opinion yet of the Derby, but the Oaks, I think I know where I want most of my money to go through, and that's going to be on the. I kept when doing this, I kept on mixing up the numbers in this race. So, and like I said, I'm working off one screen, so I'm like going back and forth. But that's the 11 ways and means, 5-1 on the morning line, and they're. You looking at this race, right? You have some horses that have won some really nice races. Obviously, the 13 Just FYI in here, who won the Juvenile Fillies, and then came back to run a solid second in the Ashland. And I was just kind of looking through some of these horses, and the one horse in this race that I can say for sure that we haven't seen their best yet really feels like the 11 ways and means. Obviously was an impressive maiden winner, won by 12 lengths, came right back in the spin away, came from pretty far off of it for a 7 furlong sprint, and ended up finishing second by half length, came back in the GP Oaks this year and finished second. But if you kind of look through the notes and you watch the replays of some of these races, I still think Ways and Means is a bit of a green horse, and has not gotten a clean trip at all in her 3 starts. And I know there's the Tacitus of the world, right, that just make their own trouble every single start. But I don't know. I think that this is less finding trouble all the time and more just, I think, just greenness. And if you've watched any works or heard any of the works, this looks like a horse that's working very, very well in the morning. News alert: every horse is working very well in the morning,
and
but
every trainer wouldn't trade places with anybody. Seriously, folks, don't listen too much to trainer speak this week.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think that 5-1's at really square price. I know you have a thought on this race a little bit later, and I agree. I agree somewhat with your thought, but yeah, I just thought that this was the spot. This is a good spot. You're going to get a nice price at 5-1, and yeah, I think this is where I'm going to have all my money in on the Kentucky Oaks.
Ways and Means is very clearly a very hard horse to ride because in all 3 of her starts, she has found trouble somewhere. I have seen these starts, and it's not the kind of trouble that, I don't know if this is as bad as it looks. It's bad. It's dreadful, especially the last 2 starts. This is a horse that damn near went down 2 starts ago in the Grade 1 spin away, still managed to run second behind a horse named Brightwork, who was going very well at the time. They gave this horse time off, came back in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, steadied going into the first turn, had to rush up, and didn't have anything left when Power Squeeze, who I think is a pretty nice horse, came up to challenge in that short stretch going a mile and a 16th. If Ways and Means gets a clean trip, I think she's tough. The problem is, I think she does make her own trouble. And I think that's evident in the workout that she had earlier this week at Churchill Downs, where she went 4 furlongs in 46-1. Chad Brown was not happy. He said, yeah, she went too fast. You don't want something like that going wrong. And it would be a little bit different if it was, say, oh, I wanted 47-3 and he went 47-1. This is 46-1. This is not an easy horse to ride. I have to think that's part of the reason that neither Flavian Pratt nor Irad Ortiz are still on this horse. Ways and Means could absolutely win the Kentucky Oaks. At 5-1, that hits me as a fair price. What I'm concerned about is her potentially being the wise guy horse and coming down to that 3-1, 7-2 range because of the connections, because of the trouble. If that happens, I think she's an underlay. If she's 5-1 or so, though, I think that's fair, and I've got nothing against you liking the horse. It's all about finding your price in that particular race, and I do think we're going to get some value there because I hate one of the horses that's going to take money. That's called foreshadowing, kids.
Well, let's let's talk about a horse that you do like.
Yes, in the race right after the Kentucky Oaks, and yes, there are two of them. Friday's card has 13 races. Be prepared. This is a really thick batch of past performances I'm holding in my hands, folks. If you're going to handicap Friday and Saturday, dedicate some time to it. So race number 12 is an optional claiming event for horses going 6.5 furlongs. These are 3-year-old fillies, and there are some well-met horses in this bunch, a bunch that includes number 6, Minx Palace. Minx Palace did something that I really like seeing debuting horses do. She closed and she won. That is not easy for a first-time starter to do. Horses are herd animals, and generally speaking, in those first-time out races, you want to be on or near the lead. This was a horse that was 5 lengths back at the first point of call. Yes, got some help from a fast pace, but rallied beneath Luis Saez, won by more than a length, and that day's second place finisher was a horse named Lemon Muffin, who's going to be contesting the Kentucky Oaks. She's not going to be one of the favorites, but she is a nice horse. We have not seen Minx Palace since that November 2nd race, but she has been working lights out at Keeneland for trainer Eddie Keneally, who knows how to win with comebacking horses. He's also 24% with horses getting first-time Lasix. And Luis Saez, who probably had some options, decides to stay aboard. There's every chance Minx Palace needs a race, but if she's right, I think she's a very nice horse, and 15-1 seems about twice the price she should be. I will gladly take a swing at or near that number on a horse that I think has some talent, that has the pedigree to get better as she gets older. There's every chance, Josh, that she's better now than she was on November 2nd. And if she is, I think we've got a very nice horse on our hands. One that, if she wins, you're not going to get 15-1 on again anytime soon.
Yeah, I did not look at races 12 or 13, so
I can't blame you. It's one of those things where, there's only so much you can expect certain people to do, especially when they're traveling like you are. I get it.
Mm-hmm. But I did look at a turf race, and it's a race right before the Oaks. And shout out to our friend Matthew DeSantis, because I believe when you had mentioned in our group chat that we were going to look at this race, what did Matthew say?
I believe he said something about the letter E and the number 8.
Yes, and if you look at race number 10, I believe we do have an E8, and that is going to be your number 1, Pink Polka Dots. And Andrew, this is maybe one of your callbacks, right? This is one of your moves. Andrew, put a line through that last race at Turfway Park. What do you see?
I see a horse that has never been trailing at any point of call in any prior turf race.
And obviously, this horse was very well bet in that Bourbonnais Oaks at Turfway Park. But, you know, we often talk about turf horses and synthetic kind of being interchangeable a bit, but it's its own surface, right? And sometimes horses just do not get that surface. And when I look at this horse, I see Candy Ride on the top. I see Dynaformer on the bottom. This is a horse that's obviously has loved the distance. Has got 2 wins going a mile and 16th on the turf, wire to wire, and is going from the rubber to the green stuff again. And you get Tyler Gaffleone aboard, who rides very, very well here in Kentucky. And I just think this is a great fit. This is a horse that is not going to be that bet because they're going to see that last race and they're going to be like, oh, when this horse faced other good horses, it just didn't run well. But I think I'm going to attribute it more to the actual surface versus any problem with the horse. And when you kind of take a look at this race, I mean, outside of maybe the 7, this race is pretty devoid of speed. Obviously, the 7 Max Superfly has shown some speed, but this is a horse, once again, that's only run on the synthetic or dirt. And once again, this is going to be this is a different surface. So who knows if this horse is going to show that kind of speed. So I really think Pink Polka Dots here is going to be a bit of an overlay, 20-1 in the morning line. And I mean, give me all of it.
I'm not going to talk you off the 20-1 that Pink Polka Dots is. I would like this horse a lot more if this horse was allowed to run on Lasix. That's the one concern that I have. You're getting 20-1. I think that's fair because if it turned out that she just didn't like the synthetic, she could absolutely run well here. What I'm more concerned about is she was going pretty well early on in the Bourbonnais Oaks and she spat the bit. I don't know if that's I hate synthetic or if it's I need Lasix. That's the question that I think you need to answer. But that's why you're getting 20-1 on this horse. And if this horse turns out to run really, really well, then yeah, it's absolutely a bargain there. Personally, I think Hard to Justify is going to be very tough to beat in there. I think there's a little bit more speed in that race than maybe it looks at first glance. I think number 6, Pounce, has to go early. I think Hard to Justify is going to, at the very least, be up close. But somebody has to run second if you like Hard to Justify. And I can't argue with anybody that wants to use Pink Polka Dots underneath at a price.
Let's move on here to your Kentucky Oaks prediction, your Friday bold prediction. Tarifa doesn't hit the board in the Kentucky Oaks.
Tarifa is your morning line favorite for the Kentucky Oaks on Friday afternoon / early evening, depending on where you are. She leads the Kentucky Oaks leaderboard in points off of wins at the fairgrounds. I didn't love either of those races. I thought she got 2 perfect trips against fields that were nothing special in any way, shape, or form. Both of those graded stakes wins came against 5 opponents apiece. To me, it just looks like, can she run well? Sure. But even if she runs well, there's no guarantee that type of effort is going to be enough against the likes of Torpedo Anna, Just FYI, Leslie's Rose, Ways and Means if she gets a trip. I think Tarifa is going to take a lot of money, and I will not have her on any of my tickets. Not to say she cannot run well. I'd be shocked if she won. I don't think she hits the board in this particular spot solely because she's finally facing 3-year-old fillies that are better than she is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't think she goes off as your favorite.
I wouldn't be surprised. And really quick, just to add something to that, if Where's My Ring runs back to the Gazelle, she could absolutely finish second or third at a big price. It's just, we don't think she beat a whole lot in the Gazelle.
Yeah.
Aqueduct surface is sort of quirky, but figures wise, she fits too. I think there's a lot better bets you can make in the Kentucky Oaks than Tarifa, who's your 7-2 morning line favorite. I don't know if she'll go off favorite or not, but she's going to be one of the favorites. It's a very good betting race.
Yeah, I could see maybe is it just FYI maybe going off as your favorite. I know she finished she finished, was it second
She was
last time
second in
out?
the Ashland, yes, but she had a really strange trip, and that was her first race in 5 months. Recent workouts look pretty good. She's my top pick in there, even with the 13 post, which isn't ideal. But going a mile and an eighth, there's at least a little bit of a run into that first turn, and she's got some tactical speed. I think she'll be okay.
Yeah, and I kind of leaned into a little bit of what you kind of said. And I was looking at the pick five, the late entire pick five that ends in the Oaks, and in my mind, every single favorite in those races looked vulnerable. And I was going to say every favorite loses, but we all know that morning lines don't really mean anything. So in this case, I decided to say no morning line favorite wins in the pick five ending in the Oaks. I know. Was it hard to justify? I know you like that horse. I believe that horse is the morning line
Yep.
favorite. That one I kind of went back and forth on. There was another one another horse in there that kind of looked good, but I don't know. I think that this late pick five is going to pay. It's going to pay very well. So of course it's going to go for five straight favorites and not pay. But I definitely think that there's going to be a very, very nice wagering opportunity in this pick five on Friday.
It very well could be. I thought Friday's races, by and large, were a little bit more wide open than Saturday's races. And that's nothing against Saturday's races. I think there are plenty of wagering opportunities. In fact, the three races that I'm going to talk about with my best bet live long shot bold prediction, they're back to back to back. So if I'm right with all three of those, I'm going to have a very good day. Do you want to talk about the Derby first before we go into the best bet live long shot bold prediction, just to give the people what they want?
Uh, sure. Do you want to start with our bold predictions since they they both involve the Derby?
That's a good idea. So look, you okay? I'll go first here. So if you're going to make money playing the Kentucky Derby, you need to take a stand against one of the two favorites. I will not take a stand against Fierceness for reasons that I will outline after Josh gives his bold prediction, because I have a sneaking feeling I know what it is. Yep. So I figured that. So
For those of you
I'm
listening on the podcast, my bold prediction is neither Sierra Leone or Fierceness wins the Derby. But back
yep.
to you, Andrew.
Sure. So I'm not taking a stand against Fierceness. And I can explain why after Josh goes into his bold prediction, because I have a feeling I know where he's going with that. But I will take a stand against Sierra Leone. The post position draw this year mattered for a number of horses. It mattered for Fierceness, who got a great draw towards the outside and could get the big brown trip. Sierra Leone is a deep closer. We know he's a head case from what he displayed in the bluegrass, and the fact that during several of his runs, he's lugged in very, very badly. He could win. He has the talent to win this race. I believe the Risen Star was the most productive Kentucky Derby prep on the entire schedule. The top five finishers from that race all made the Kentucky Derby field. That's kind of amazing when you think about it. If Sierra Leone was 8-1, I wouldn't be as staunchly against Sierra Leone as I am. At 3-1 on the morning line, anywhere close to that, I can't play this horse. Domestic Product, however, I find very interesting. The two races that he's run this year, he has had no pace to chase. And he is a dyed-in-the-wool closer that wants a pace to sit behind and will make one run. In those two races, he was second in the Grade 3 Holy Bull and was the only horse doing any running late in that short stretch going a mile and a 16th at Gulfstream Park. And Josh, who ran third that day?
Fierceness.
Yep. We forget that because everyone's drawing a line through Fierceness's dud in that race, because that wasn't the real Fierceness. Copyright Pete Aiello with a nod to Dave Rodman. All rights reserved. But Domestic Product running second in that race is going completely ignored, and I thought he ran very well that day. I also thought he ran well in the Tampa Bay Derby, and I think we as handicappers are ignoring that race because we couldn't bet on it. That was the
Hmm.
day of the gigantic tote fiasco. And yes, folks, it was a tote fiasco. We bet through the tote. We couldn't use the tote. It was a tote outage. Let's be real. Anyway, I think domestic product, for the first time in forever, gets a pace to sit behind beneath Irad Ortiz Jr., one of the best riders in the game, who's going to give him every chance to make a run. Do I think domestic product wins? No. Do I think domestic product could well run second? Absolutely. And at that kind of a price, I think that's a horse you want to be using in your exotics versus a horse like Sierra Leone. And hey, if you hate fierceness, take the same general strategy. Because if you're playing a whole bunch of exactas and one of them is Sierra Leone fierceness or fierceness Sierra Leone, that's not sound betting strategy because that exacta is not going to pay anything and you're just throwing money at combinations. Take a stand against one of those two horses at least, and you could stand to make some money. And Josh, I disagree with you, but I like where your head's at.
Yeah. So I laugh a little bit because I have I just have a different opinion on this than you do. So I think Sierra Leone is probably, out of all the horses in the race, that I think is most likely to finish third or better. I just think that the way that that horse runs, that horse clunking up for third is like almost a guarantee, and winning the race, depends on a couple of other things. My, my biggest issue with Sierra Leone is, I think, what you had kind of mentioned, the price. I mean, if Sierra Leone's going to be 3-1 horizontally, I'll use, but from a single race standpoint, or trying to build a well, maybe not a superfecta just because how inefficient that pool is, but from a single race like win bet, Sierra Leone is just not touchable. I have concerns about fierceness. Um, I think I joked with you but earlier about the post position and how
I
it hasn't
have
gotten enough
data.
shot.
I have data here, by
I
the way, if
That's
we want to
not
address
no
that.
that's not I have no issues with the post. Like I said, it's a different gate and
Yeah.
all that's different.
Also, very quickly, if you do have issues with the post, I'm not going to go through it on the podcast. Look up Joaquin Jaime from FanDuel Racing on Twitter. He has laid out the horses that have broken from post 17 and their respective odds. It's worth a look.
Um but when I look at this race and I think about the last couple years, um and it's a 20 horse race, it's a very weirdly run race. I just see there being a ton of speed in here. And I know that Fierceness has tried to rate, but and I mean the juvenile, he set second, but that pace, I mean, it was okay, but they went 24 in that second quarter, so it definitely slowed down a bit there. I'm just a little concerned that he's been on the lead in relatively easy paces, and that's when he's won. And if he's going to be on the lead or close to it with a hot pace, I just have concerns pace wise with that. And so, my eyes kind of go to, you know, I mean, my eyes should go to Sierra Leone because obviously the Bluegrass was a pretty fast pace, and Sierra Leone just absolutely closed into that one. But two other horses that my eyes kind of go to, the 4 Catching Freedom
Uh huh.
for Brad Cox. I think that he might get a little lost on the board. I know he's 8-1 in the morning line, but I do think that these other two horses could take just a crap ton of money. Or I could also see the fact that people are going to look at this horse and be like, this is the third choice, this is the third option, and maybe he gets bet down a little bit more than that. But I just thought Catching Freedom's run style really, really fits in with what's going to happen here pace wise. And then probably the horse that everybody's talking about, and I hate I hate that I might be on the wise guy horse. But the 7 Honor Marie, I think, also ran a really good race last time out in the Louisiana Derby. And I know everyone's talking about that work. Um, I'm just looking at the price. And if that's the wise guy horse and everybody knows someone named Marie and that horse goes off at 8-1 like my boy Jack, then I don't want to touch it at the 10-foot pole.
Mhm.
At the morning line, horse makes a lot of sense. That as a type of horse I'd like to play. But yeah, I just think pace wise, it's going to be tough to take anyone on the front end. You know, I had gone through a bunch of these horses, tried to make a case for them. Like for a while, I thought that maybe Track Phantom would be interesting because he's ran a couple of stinkers.
E8.
Well, I thought that he's run a couple of stinkers. Like, you know, he's going to be out of everybody's mind, and maybe if he shows up with his A effort, like it's enough to win here. But there's just no way that he's going to be able to get on the lead and run any type of fraction that I think he's going to be able to stay on with. So I had a hard time sticking with any of the speed horses here, and I got 2 closers I think that are going to be an okay price. And I mean, I say Sierra Leone doesn't win the Derby, but you know, maybe I'm just you know, I'm fishing for clicks a little bit, but
That's why we call it a bold prediction, though.
I
Like,
know.
that's the thing. If we're right, it's a really, really good call that nobody's going to be taking. I'm
Yeah.
going to counterpoint you on a couple of fierceness things
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot that's being made about how fierceness hasn't passed horses. Fierceness hasn't passed horses. Fierceness hasn't passed horses. Hi, Mark Capitan. How you doing? Here's a stat that I think is very relevant. And I know speed figures aren't everything. They're a tool in a toolbox, right? But there are 2 speed figures in this race of all of the horses that have run any sort of races where the horse in question has earned a Briz speed figure of 105 or greater. Fierceness has both of them. Yes, a Mark Stray alert down there on the bottom. We don't have the soundboard, so we're going to need to improvise. Fierceness has 2. The rest of the field has 0. Fierceness has 3 races in which he has run a triple-digit Briz speed figure, 100 or greater. The rest of the field, 21 other horses, counting the also eligibles, have combined for 6. You don't need to pass other horses if you're naturally faster than all of them. And I keep coming back to this point that I've been mulling over for several weeks now, which is if fierceness runs his A race, who beats him? And Josh, I know you had mentioned jokingly someone running their S race. I'm looking at this field with the possible, and I mean possible, exception of Catching Freedom, who finally caught a clean trip last time out in the Louisiana Derby. I don't know if any other horse's S race is enough. With that in mind, fierceness is going to be a single on every one of my tickets. I could not, in good conscience, though, give you fierceness, a 5-2 morning line favorite in the Kentucky Derby, as my best bet of the Saturday card. I wanted to go hunting for some value. And with that, we are going to start by looking at race number 10, the race 2 races before the Kentucky Derby, the grade 1, and I use that term very loosely, Churchill Downs Stakes. How this race is a grade 1 and the Cigar Mile is a grade 2, I don't know. To me, they're pretty much the same race that attracts pretty much the same kind of field.
Are you not a big fan of Mr. Wireless?
No, I'm not. What I am a fan of, though, is Lone Speed. And I think Hoist the Gold is absolutely the lone speed in this year's Churchill Downs Stakes, breaking from the far outside, which is a fantastic post. He's not going to have to worry about any traffic at all whatsoever. I'm drawing a big old line through the Saudi Cup. You ship a horse halfway across the world, weird things are sometimes going to happen. I'm drawing a line straight through that. This horse wants 7 furlongs to a mile, one turn. He gets that route here. And he gets that route as the 7-2 second choice on the morning line. Your morning line favorite is horse number 6, Zozos, a horse that I liked a bit last time out in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, which Josh was won by which horse?
Um, Sizz?
Cody's Wish would be the name of that horse. I was trying to give you a nice little layup there, but
I
it's
don't want to
okay.
say that name.
You are car lagged after driving to the middle of nowhere. I understand that. The thing with Zozos is, I think 7 furlongs is a little bit too short for him, for one. For another, looking at the work tab, this horse was off the tab completely from the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile to March 29th. This horse has 5 workouts leading up to this race that he comes back in on the Kentucky Derby Day undercard. I think this is a prep. I think they're thinking, okay, this is $1 million race. There aren't any monsters out there. Let's enter. Let's take our shot. If he winds up winning, that's great. If not, it's not the end of the world. I think Zozos will go favored because of the Brad Cox connection and because Hoist the Gold comes in off of such a terrible effort in Saudi Arabia. Hoist the Gold, to me, hits me as the lone speed in this race. I think leads them at every point of call beneath John Velasquez. That's my best bet of the day. He's going to be a single for me in a lot of those multi-race exotics. I think he leads from flagfall to that's all. And hey, early speed on the Derby Day undercard, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I looked at this race a little bit. I have a hard time trusting Hoist the Gold with coming back from Saudi.
We share that because I feel like Hoist the Gold either wins by 5 or he's 12th beaten 20 and there's no middle ground. And I understand that there are only 11 horses in the field. I still think he's 12th beaten 20.
Yeah. I actually kind of like Tejano Twist in this spot, but I think he's gonna have a lot to do. But he does seem to like Churchill Downs a little bit. He does have 2 wins here at Churchill. I mean, obviously it's in 10 starts, but I kind of feel like he's kind of become a different horse after turning 4, and has really kind of he started churning out a couple wins. He had 3 wins last year, winless this year, but he's got 3 seconds. So I just think that he's an interesting horse. And like when I look at the horses that beat Tejano Twist, I think those horses would be 5-2, 2-1 in this race. And I'm talking about Skelly and Jackson Traveler. I think that those horses would I mean, they would be super short in a race like this. So,
Yeah.
um,
Tejano Twist would actually be my second choice in the race. My concern with him is I think he's a better 6 furlong horse than a 7 furlong horse.
yeah,
I
fair
think
enough.
he's a drop back, make one run sort of thing. And I think 7 furlongs might be just a bit further than he wants to go. He finished third in this race last year. Hoist the Gold actually beat him home that day. Cody's Wish was a city block ahead of both of them. But that's not a totally illogical thing. The only issue with that is who goes with Hoist the Gold. I don't know if anyone does. And if Hoist the Gold gets comfortable, like if you see 22-4, 45-3, probably gone.
So Andrew, we there's a line that you love to say, right? That we've watched a ton of races, and when we see races differently, like that's what makes the game great, right?
Sure.
We've seen a ton of races, and we see the race exactly the same. Is that like? Do you think that we might be in trouble?
Does this involve the letter E and the number 8 by any chance?
It
Yep.
absolutely does. Look at I had this horse. I love this horse so much, and I bet this horse every single time he runs. And I'm talking about number 8, Never Surprised in the Turf Classic, race 11. And by God, one of these times he's going to get there, and I'm going to have him. I mean, we're going back to the Pegasus turf when Colonel Liam held him off, and the subsequent races. I bet him. And I just think that he's gonna get loose once again here. You get Flo aboard. I really wish that it was, Saez, but you know, there is just absolutely no speed in this race. And I feel like I say that every time he runs, but there really is no speed in here. And I just think that he gets out there and gets loose. And, you know, we'll see how this turf course is playing. Nobody knows how this turf is going to end up because the last couple of years with them ripping it out, putting it back in, and it's just been a weird turf course. Hopefully, with a couple of years under it now, like you said on Saturday, the turf course looked good. So let's hope it holds up this week, and we'll see what we get here. But I mean, this just seems like the quintessential lone speed, um, and like I know he got that two back, but he finished second by a nose. He almost did it. Maybe we get him to hold on this time.
Yep. And the reason Josh mentioned us agreeing on a race, which very rarely happens, and it's why this show is a lot of fun, is that's my Saturday long shot, never surprised. And first of all, I think we're going to get the 10-1 on this horse, but I think the morning line is absolutely dreadful. If number 6, I'm very busy, winds up going off favored over horses like Integration and Program Trading. Naval Power, by the way, sorry about that, is actually the morning line favorite, but I'm very busy, very close behind at 4-1. That's wrong. I'm very busy, ran one big race at Fairgrounds on Lasix, which he doesn't get here. I think that one drifts up. I think Integration and Program Trading come down a couple of ticks. And I think those two and Naval Power wind up being the three favorites, with I'm very busy and Never Surprised fairly close in the wagering. I don't know if Never Surprised is the lone speed, but I think Never Surprised is the main speed. I think Cellist has some early speed, even though I think he probably wants a little bit longer than a mile and an eighth. The wild card to me would be number 5 Program Trading, who has gone to the front in a couple of his prior starts from the middle of his 3-year-old year. He won the Saratoga Derby that way, going close to wire when he re-rallied over yielding turf. I don't think position A for him is the front, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he shows a little bit of early interest. But Never Surprised is absolutely a must use if you subscribe to the notion that pace makes the race.
Yeah, and honestly, um, going into my long shot, uh, we kind of come to a similar situation, I think, in race 7, the Distaff Turf Mile. Maybe there's a little bit more pace in this race. I think you got like Heavenly Sunday and Delahaye, have shown.
Walkathon can go too.
Um, but I see Luis Saez getting onto a turf horse that wants to be on the front. I see a horse that has run his best race going a mile and is cutting back from going slightly longer. I mean, not so close. Another E8. Um, I know last time out, he finished third to Delahaye and I think joined the dance. And but the way he kind of kept on in that race was just a little bit different than he had been running the last couple of races. He had a soft ground at Fairgrounds time before. Maybe he just didn't like to cut in the ground, but he basically quit in that race, and the race before he'd kind of quit once again. But if you look at the notes, he really like dug in and really just fought and kind of stuck in there. And when you see this horse is now that type of horse is cutting back, I think maybe the horse is going to have enough in the tank to hang on the front end in this time. And you go back to that Saratoga race 4 back. I mean, that's exactly what happened. Ricky Santana got that horse on the front end and he held on and won by 3/4 of a length. So I think the cutback's going to help here. I think the rider switch, you get the best front end turf rider in the country. I don't know. I think there's a lot of signs pointing up, and then you see 20-1 in the morning line. Like I am absolutely taking a shot here with Not So Close.
So I get that for sure. I think there's more speed in the race. I think there are horses that are going to go early. I actually really like the horse a couple of stalls outside of that one. Number 11, Cop Ice, who is 5-1 on the morning line. And my guess is that one's coming down.
Hmm.
This is a Chad Brown trained runner with Frankie Dettori aboard, the Juddmonte Silks that we've seen very often. And she's making her first start in the U.S. after a very good European campaign last year that saw her run up against the likes of Inspiral and Nashua. If Inspiral or Nashua showed up in this particular field, they'd be 1-5, and for very good reason. The post position, a little bit of a concern, but I think that one is clearly the most likely winner of that particular race. But hey, I'm not going to talk you off a 20-1 shot, especially when it's a speed horse ridden by Luis Saez, one of the best gate riders in the game. And hey, even if I like Cop Ice as much as I do, somebody's got to run second.
Yep. Andrew, that might have been record time for us to get through get through all of our topics for the week.
And we only made it through with one stray at Mark Capitan. Under betters, collect your money.
Yep. Clapping. Yeah, I wish I had my soundboard, but
This
honestly,
is just like one of those cheap 1930s radio broadcasts where they had like instructions written in the script and we're reading them out as we go.
yeah, honestly, I just wanted to make sure that we got content out for you guys.
Of course.
And yeah, we'll have our live streams on Thursday and Friday as our normal times. And I'll be doing stuff. I think I'm doing something with Gino this week, and we got some other fun stuff possibly might be happening. So stay tuned. Obviously on thewronglead.com at wrong_lead. Bum bum ba-da-dum, bum bum bum.
Really quick plug before we wind up bidding you adieu. Winnersandwhiners.com will have Kentucky Derby content up all week, including some promos from online race books that you're not going to want to miss. If you haven't, for some reason, set up an account on a couple of these race books, you're going to want to pay attention. No better time than now to sign up. So keep an eye out.
Cool. Well, it's going to do it for us. Catch you guys later.